In today's podcast on Data for All, data in home automation. Welcome to the Data for All podcast. I'm Charlie Apigian.
And I'm Charlie Euban, where we want to empower you to think different with data.
And in today's podcast, we are going to talk about something that will hit home for everyone. Like what I did there? Hit home? He's just staring at me.
I don't get it.
Hit home. Home automation. Oh, it took him a little bit to hit home. He was thinking baseball or what? No, we're talking home automation today.
Yeah, so the whole time you were approaching the joke, and I saw that my reaction, because we do this little scripted thing at the beginning, I saw my reaction was, aha, I see what you did there. But then I was reading, I was like, I don't see what he did there. I don't see it. He's getting close to it.
And then it's got, for me, I just start talking, and so I'm talking. But I like that one better. We're not gonna start with that one over. That was good.
Yeah,
I like it.
Successfully failed.
So can you tell I'm a little excited here, folks? Today, this is a topic that I would say is a hobby right now. Mm-hmm. Very, very much so, because I've had this luxury, which has also been a pain in the behind, mm-hmm. where I have been in transition moving for the last few months. So what I mean by that is we are moving from one town into Nashville. So going from Murfreesboro, Tennessee to Nashville, but our son hasn't graduated high school yet. Mm-hmm. So until he graduates, we're not going to officially move, which means we get the amazing opportunity to start a home and not put all of our junk in it on day one. Mm-hmm. We get to slowly, incrementally do things. We are acting like we're doing it intentionally.
Yeah.
But it's really neat to have a house right now where it's not cluttered. Mm-hmm. And I got to start the home automation from scratch. And that's what has been so much fun. Are you a big home automation guy?
Yeah, I appreciate a budget for home automation.
Budget.
And it sounds like you've got that going for you.
I do. I think what I decided to do is basically, I think the way that we're going to go through today's podcast is mm-hmm. I tried to be intentional and start the journey from what you should start with, which is the home assistant, mm-hmm. and then what you build from there. And I chose certain things that either made it easier or harder to do things, but it also made me more secure from a data perspective.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because that's something that is on the forefront of the home automation conversation, is like what data am I generating and where does it go? Yep. And that harkens back to our previous podcast where we talk about internet privacy. Yep. And this is just another example of a different type of internet privacy and mm-hmm. data privacy niche. I don't know, whatever you want to call it. But it's important to know about. And we're getting to a point to where it's getting to be extremely viable to have an automated home.
Mm-hmm. And let's think about how our journeys before this starting from scratch, because mm-hmm. most people are not starting from scratch. They've already got something in their house. They may have like a thermostat or something like that, and then mm-hmm. now they add on the other stuff. Charlie, in your case, did you start with the gadget or the hub or the home assistant?
I started with the original Google Home.
Okay.
And so mine was very much AI influenced.
Okay.
And so I like Google Assistant. I've always liked it. It's been better at natural language understanding. It's just easier to work with overall. It can answer more questions fluently. Mm-hmm. I mean, if you've ever had the opportunity to compare Google's AI versus a Siri or whatnot, you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
But the HomePod was, for me, it was just a music thing. It was like I could play my music through the HomePod, and the speakers sounded really great because it was the bigger one. But then the Mini came out, and I started buying. I bought a couple of them, but then Google would give you one if you ever bought a Google phone or anything that was pricier with Google. And sometimes they would just send you an email and say, "Hey, you want one? Because I'll send you one." And so I slowly got one in every room. And so every room in my house basically has a little Mini, and then I've got one home, and then I'm going to be updating in the future.
So when you say Minis, are you talking about Google brand?
Yeah, the Google. Okay. I don't know, the Google Home is the taller one, And this is the very first one, so it doesn't have a screen. But then the little ones are like they're the Echo Dot size Google things.
Okay. Yeah, I'm looking at those on Google. And lately what you're going to see is everything's branded Google and Nest, correct?
Google and Nest are the same thing now.
Okay. Yeah, and it's this little disc that you can place anywhere and automatically connects to your Wi-Fi. Gotcha.
From that point, I found more options, and so I started buying Hue lights, and that's I set up my hub for that. Which you want to talk about hubs in a little bit, right?
Sure, absolutely. Yep.
And so we've got. I started with that, and then I added the thermostat later. And so right now I'm temperature, lighting, and Home Assistant.
Okay. Yeah, I'm trying to think what my first thing was. So I was definitely an Amazon Echo in terms of home assistants. I didn't get an Apple HomePod until I switched over to my TV being Apple TV, which was pretty recent. I did a Nest thermostat when it was Nest before Google bought them.
Yeah.
And
this was in the Murfreesboro house.
this is, and I think it's important to mention one of the reasons I went to smart lights is because I was in 100-year-old home. So if you know anything about 100-ish years ago, electricity wasn't the thing, and you don't have lights in the middle of the room like that, like other ones, or you don't have wall switches because you got these old plaster walls where the house was built either before or it didn't include electricity.
So you got a lot of lamps.
I got a lot of lamps or makeshift ones where there could be a little like a Wi-Fi or a wireless connection to the light, and they sometimes work, they sometimes don't. And then I was like, well, might as well just add some fancy lights. So that goes back to about 2016 is when I moved into this old house. In my previous house, I don't know if I had much. I don't know. And then we went all in on the Amazon Echo, and I was creating skills and things like that. And so I could say Amazon hey, my Amazon thingy, good morning, and it would tell me the news and things like that. And so I got into that for a little bit.
So a skill is like a routine.
Yep.
But it's also like kind of an app you can install as well, right?
That is correct. So skills can be something from CNN or from your weather app, but then it has to be triggered, of course, by your voice to be able to do something. Or it can be an Amazon thing where you could say to, hey, Amazon, and it would allow you to order something, which I don't think has really taken off, and I'm kind of glad. I don't want to order things by just saying, hey, order something, because then you have no idea what's really being ordered, that whole thing.
So I'm glad you brought that up too, because when we come into the pros and cons section, like those are two things that directly need to be addressed.
Right. So the point is we've all gone into this kind of makeshift. So if we were starting out from scratch with our home, even before we get to the point, I actually screwed up a little bit.
How so?
I was being this incredible genius. So I've got one of the tall skinnies. So I've got 3 levels.
Yeah.
And getting a Wi-Fi connection from the first floor to the 3rd floor, I had no idea how that would be. So I'm like, haha, I'll put my internet connection on the 2nd floor right in the middle.
Nice.
Right?
Yeah.
We did it with cabling that wasn't fiber. But then I have fiber coming into the house.
Yeah.
So when I did that, we went with AT&T fiber. They said, well, we can have the hub on the 1st floor, your Wi-Fi connection on the 1st floor, and it'll be directly fiber, or we could do it that way, and then you lose your fiber, basically. And it's like, well, that doesn't make sense. So I kind of screwed up. I should have had fiber going all the way to the 2nd floor of the house, and I didn't. So my Wi-Fi connection is actually on the 1st floor.
Yeah.
So the first thing then that I decided to do really was make sure that I could capture or I had good Wi-Fi throughout the house, which I highly encourage anybody, if you have dead spots in your house, to get a mesh network.
Yeah.
Right? Do you have a mesh network?
Absolutely.
Okay. And
unless you have an apartment that's like 800 square feet, and if you have multiple floors, or like even in the long ranches or ranch style homes, Like a mesh network is just the best because the way they communicate helps the transfer rate. So so let me take a step back. I like to play video games, right?
Yes.
And so on when you play video games on a computer, you always plug the cable into your
directly to your internet.
Yeah, directly into the internet because your ping is really low, and that's how fast the responses can go back and forth. And it makes it to where if you're playing a really fast Twitch game, like you have an advantage. Mm-hmm. So you always plug in. And then traditionally, you never play over Wi-Fi with those types of games. But this one is the way they communicate. I can run a wire from the mesh router into my computer on the second floor if my main router's on the first, and get almost just as good a ping. Like I may be losing 10 milliseconds, maybe.
Yeah.
And that's incredible.
Yeah. And so basically what a mesh network means is you're basically creating a second network in most cases. Actually, I think in every case in your house, and it has these nodes that you put around or these little itty bitty connections, and you can put them anywhere. Mm-hmm. And they all communicate together to create this mesh network. So it gives you better coverage in distant places in your home, or it allows you to scale it out to those areas. So in like my home right now, I have the AT&T one, and we use that pretty much for walking around the house with our laptops or our phones. But we have a TV on the third level. That one is connected to our mesh network. Mm-hmm. And then I was not getting good enough Wi-Fi, even though it was fiber. I wasn't getting good Wi-Fi to that TV without the mesh network.
I bet that was annoying.
It was. So that was my first step, and that was a little bit of I wish I had it on the second floor. That'd have been really cool, and now it's after the fact of getting it there. But the next thing I had to decide was the ecosystem or the home assistant, right? And so, Charlie, what are some there's really three big ones, right?
Yeah, but I think it's important to call out the differentiation between the home assistants and then home automated hubs.
Okay.
So you've got Google Home, which is their home product. You've got Apple's is HomeKit.
Yep.
And then Amazon's they just call it, don't they?
I guess so.
So but it comes out in the Echo, the Echo line of stuff. And so those are home automation AIs basically. And they're tools to help control the AI because you can tell the AI to do whatever it is that you would have to go into and press a button for otherwise. But then there's centralized hubs like IFTTT, which is if this, then that, which I used to use way back in the day just to do stuff on my phone in an automated way. And then you've got home assistants, and then you've got, I'm looking on here, Smart Things. And those are just applications that you plug all of these vendors into. And then one of those vendors is also just the home assistant. So you can take the AI approach is like, I choose this, and then I'm only going to pick products based off of what works best with that. Or you go with a Smart Things approach, which is I just buy whatever lighting I like the best. It doesn't have to be Hue. And then I buy everything kind of piecemeal, but plug it into this one centralized system.
Yeah, but it's in that case, in like Apple, or if you're using Amazon or Google, a lot of people may not buy their own hub, and they kind of use the system as the hub. Like for me, like Apple HomeKit really isn't a dedicated hub, even though you should. Like what I should do is have one iPad that controls my house.
I would have a whole page of shortcuts.
Yeah, I mean
your
that.
Phone.
And what I'm planning to do once I make the official move over, I leave one iPad at my old house, so I always have one there. When that one comes to the new house, I think I'm going to make that my hub, basically.
Yeah,
and
that's a good
exactly
idea.
what you're saying. Put that on the first floor, and if I want my lights to turn a certain color, I've got a button for that instead of having to say, "Hey, you know who, do that." So a lot of people will have that. With Amazon, what you can have is those different devices all just basically work together. And so you don't have to have a dedicated hub. But what you're noticing now is there's this move to a centralized communication system called Thread, right? I think I don't know if you know. Again, I got really into this, and so supposedly they're all going to start using the same language over time, where a SmartThings hub or their Home Assistant or the other ones that are out there it doesn't matter if it's a Google product or an Apple product, they'll all be able to work together. But
that makes sense though, because if you're the industry of home automation, the better you talk to one another, the more you can all grow.
Yeah. So let's talk about talking to one another. What is the difference between the ecosystems of Google, Amazon, and Apple?
Yeah. So just like you,
high level. Yep.
Yeah. So just like you, I took the AI, approach first. And so that's where I kind of built my stuff. Like I said, my most important thing was like, can I talk to you in as plain of talk as possible and get what I want out of you?
Yeah.
Like turn on the light. I don't have to say the specific name and things like that. And so for me, Google was the best overall at voice recognition. And then it had features early on when I made my choice that other ones didn't have. But for the most part, like I put together a list of kind of like the pros and cons, and we can go through them. I want to just talk about them as they come up. But Google's obviously the best in search, and it's also, and this is very important to me, it's also really good at pausing or letting you pause in the middle of telling it something.
Oh, okay.
And so when I'm when I'm making it up on the spot and I have to stop talking for a second, then Siri's just like, oh, you stopped talking? Great. Let me just.
Oh, and it does it really quick, doesn't it?
Yeah. But Google's got this like, it's a natural pause to it where it's just like, oh, I'm still listening. So just keep on going whenever. And
and then Amazon's always listening.
Yeah. Good one. Nice. And so Google and Amazon both have custom routines that pick up on sound or ambient stuff in the room. So they can pick up on babies crying, and they can pick up on water running. So if you accidentally leave the sink on, you can get a notification that water may be running in a room. Siri doesn't have that though.
Gotcha. All right. And then the other part is, where is data stored for Google, Apple, and Amazon? So when you're talking, does the processing happen on that device, or does it go up into the cloud for Google?
It's kind of a hybrid.
Okay.
There are things that it stores on the device locally. I don't have the list in front of me, but there are things that stay local, and there's things that go up too.
Yeah. But in most cases, the assumption is, in Google's case and in the Amazon world, there is a connection to something external. And then the assumption is with Apple, most of it's happening here, or anything that is going back is anonymized. And I say perception because I don't know where it's actually stated. And we keep looking for specifically what is captured, what's not captured by Apple. And they just say, don't worry, we're not capturing your stuff.
Yeah. And they're actually, this is a completely separate topic, but they're actually about to offer you the ability to turn off your cloud sync for security purposes.
Oh.
And so right now your authentication key backs up to iCloud, and you can turn that off. But when you lose your local device, you lose whatever's on it.
Yeah.
And so it's kind of a double-edged sword that they're asking for, but do they really want it? And in some cases, the answer is absolutely yes. And so I think it's cool that they're giving that opportunity for you to just shut yourself off.
Yeah, and I think what we're trying to skirt around it, but let's just be blunt here. Apple, I say assumption, but the truth is they try to do more stuff on the device so that it does keep your data safer or more localized, where the assumption is Google, most of their applications are happening in a cloud. And in Amazon's case, same thing.
Yeah, for sure.
And there's the assumption is you are, with Apple, you're probably getting better security, but you're losing the ability to talk to more devices or to more things, where Google, you're getting this incredible cloud infrastructure. It talks very well to things, and Amazon does too. Amazon products talk to everything, but you're giving your data away
That's true.
in a case, right?
I mean, it goes back to the cell phone stuff because you're not giving your home AI more than your cell phone's taken already.
Sure.
In most cases, and so what it does is it's just a stationary device that even if the room's clear, there's still an ear in the room, and you can mute. I know on the Google devices and on the Echo devices, you can mute those, right?
I know you can, and most people don't. Most people leave all the defaults as they are.
No,
And
I definitely do.
and so that's why we're having this conversation today is you need to go in and you need to understand what your device is capturing about you, go into those things. And if it says, do you want this to be on all the time? Do you ever say, I always want my location and everything to be on all the time? I mean, there's very few applications I can even think about that I want that.
I do that with Google Maps.
Google Maps. Okay. Well, that one makes sense. I'm trying to think. I've got probably 2 or 3 that I do it with, and the rest are while I'm using it.
Yeah.
And so with that, now here's why I'm not trying to scare people, but I remember sitting with my wife. We were talking about, let's say, rugs and decorative rugs or something like that, and all of a sudden she's getting ads in Instagram.
Yeah.
And can that, now we know that can happen through your phone. Can it also happen through an Amazon Echo device?
So for all intents and purposes, Amazon doesn't have a phone. They used to have a Fire Phone, and they do have an app that can live on your device. And if you have that app downloaded to your device, it's the same thing. So having a HomeKit thing, or what do they call them, pods?
Yep.
So if you have a HomePod, it's just like having an iPhone sitting there.
Yep.
And so same thing with, it's like an Android phone for the Google one, and then call it a Fire Phone for the Amazon one, because they all collect the same stuff. And so the only thing, well, if you're trying to be private, you need to be mindful of it. And so when I had one in my office, when I was having secure meetings, I would call them secure, just like sensitive meetings. I would mute the mic manually then, but at home, and I don't do it anymore.
Yeah, and I think that's where the use of it versus your comfort in things being captured really need to be talked about or need to be internalized. And I think that's where I went with things. So I was Amazon Echo with everything at my house back in the day, and I had a Ring camera as my doorbell. And at some point, I just decided, I don't know if I want everything captured and stored somewhere, and I don't know where it is. And I'm not saying there's anything malicious that's happened. I'm just saying I didn't know, and therefore I didn't want to keep going down that route.
That's fair.
So I went away from Amazon altogether. Again, didn't have a bad experience. I'm not saying anything bad versus anything else. I went to Apple 100% for this new house. There's basically a few reasons for that. The first is I live in the Apple ecosystem. I have an iPhone, I have an iPad, I have a Mac. I started using Apple products back in 1984 with my Apple IIe. I'm an Apple guy. It is what it is. So it made sense. I prefer the Apple TV device to a Roku or to something else.
It is good.
It is. And I'll tell you what, those speakers on those little HomePod minis are really good. And I'm buying one of those new HomePods. They're a little bit pricey. $279, I think, is the price right now. So I'm not dying to get it until I'm really in the house. But I've heard those things are amazing in terms of a speaker.
The big ones are.
Yeah.
So there's not much of a change between the two. And so you may be able to get a deal on the first gen one.
Oh, okay. I heard the bass is a little bit better, I think. There's a couple other little things.
If you're into getting the best, then the 2 is definitely the way to go.
And we use it for a TV most of the time. Like we use Apple HomePod minis for our TV speakers.
So you pair them in stereo and then listen to them through
and
Bluetooth?
we lose them. We have them behind us.
And there's no issues with the sound syncing with the image?
No, we have no problems with syncing. Every now and then one of them might go out, and then we just, it's because of it was because of the mesh network. One would go onto the other one and things like that. But no, we've because the Apple TV easily pairs with HomePod minis, and we got this incredible surround sound in our house. And we needed that in the room we were in, where just the TV coming to us, we seemed we're losing a little bit of the voice.
Yeah.
You know how that sometimes happened. So having those extra speakers were really cool, and so we'll want to do that again.
Yeah.
But again, going back to choosing Apple, the other is I kind of like most of my stuff or feeling like it's more secure. So if I have an Apple HomePod device, I don't feel like it's listening to me all the time and selling my information. I'm not saying the other ones are, but
everybody proclaims that they do not sell data procured from home automation.
That's right.
Or home AIs.
That's why I say I'm only making that assumption. It makes me feel better being in the Apple ecosystem versus the Amazon or the Google one.
I get that.
So it was a choice. Now, I could have gone back. There's nothing wrong with the others. You know, I felt I interacted more with Amazon than or my Echoes than I do with my HomePods.
Yeah.
I don't say "Hey, SIRI" very much in my house.
Yeah. So it's difficult AIs make it difficult to talk to, and so you lean on them less.
You do.
And Google are definitely the best.
They are. They're better
at that kind of recognition. And I hope we're not setting people's stuff off by coming close to saying the keywords. But so another limitation, you know, talking about time spent with your device, giving it commands, like, and Google can both take multiple commands at once. So I can tell it to turn off this light, turn on that light, turn off the light in the room because it's contextually aware of where it's at. And Siri cannot do that. So you've got to go through and do commands. You've got to do Siri serially.
Yes. And so I was about ready to say you can create a shortcut that does that.
Yeah.
Or it can be within a specific app.
But
obviously.
all of them have that type of stuff.
That's true.
They've all got some sort of routines.
And I would say the ability to talk to devices or applications was a better experience with Amazon than it has been so far with Apple. It has. Now again, what did I buy to have go to the Apple ecosystem?
Yeah, what did you get to?
I didn't buy anything. If you think about it, I just bought Apple compatible devices. You know, because and I'm not saying I think I'm doing this wrong. I think I need to go buy a hub because I feel like, or I have to use that iPad dedicated to that, and that's what. If you go to Apple's website,
well, we haven't talked about a hub yet. What is it? Like, what do you mean by hub?
So, well, specifically when I'm saying hub, I'm talking about one device that everything connects to, and then you control that one hub that controls everything.
Okay, and why is that important?
It would only be important if you want total control of everything within one unit. And I don't have that right now. I don't have that use case.
But what about connections to the Wi-Fi?
Connections to the Wi-Fi.
Like if you've got a hub, you've got less devices connected and stuff like that.
Yeah. Now, hub, when we're talking about hub, there are ones that are device specific. So let's just get into our lights, right? So we all like smart lights. That's the first thing we think. We think of thermostat, we think of cameras, door locks, and lights are usually the big home automation things. In terms of lights, one hub for your lights is really important.
Yeah, it's a requirement basically.
Yeah,
unless you plan on just doing one or two lights.
And so early on in when I started in the smart light area, I picked Lifx, Lifx, and loved them. They were cheaper, but each light was its own hub.
Yeah.
And so what I found out, and again, this goes back to like 2016. I'm pretty sure it was 2016 because it was right when we got into that old house. And I needed the ability to control. Well, I put in all these color lights and I did all this stuff. And all of a sudden, my kids kept getting knocked off of the Wi-Fi.
Yeah.
And what we found out is at that time, our Wi-Fi hub our Wi-Fi in general had 16 devices that could connect to it. And each one of our lights was a connection.
Yeah, so your router only gave out so many IP addresses.
That's right.
Yeah.
And so my lights, I had 8 to 12 Lifx lights. I think it was just 8. But then each one of my kids had a phone. I have 4 kids. That's 6 phones. That was at least 4 iPads and at least 5 or 6 computers. So we were close to 16 without any lights.
Yeah.
And so we chose then to switch over to Philips Hue, where it was one connection, one IP address now in my house that was connecting to my Wi-Fi connection.
I started with Hue because I didn't want to go down I didn't want to mess around and then find out that it was, something wasn't as good as what Hue was at the time. And I don't regret it. It costs more to set your house up with Hue, but you never have to worry about it again.
Yeah. And so I think it's really important to talk about when I was going through this journey, what I was thinking of is I need just 2 or 3 different device ecosystems that can connect to HomeKit, Apple HomeKit. That's basically what my goal was.
Oh, that's a good way to think about it.
Yeah. So I have Philips Hue lights. Why did I stick with Philips Hue lights? Well, I had no problems with them. And the only thing I had to do was take some light bulbs from my old house and bring it over here. And I had to buy a new hub or bridge, I think is what they actually call it.
Yeah. And so it acts, just to clarify what we're talking about, it acts as a mini router by creating one IP address that your router connects to, but it takes in, 10 to 50 IP addresses and makes its own IP addresses like a mini router for each device.
And it's one connection and that's it. So if you have 50 lights, it's still only one connection on your Wi-Fi because I think it uses Zigbee, I think is what it's called. Zigbee is the actual communication
I haven't looked into that.
language for it. And so it's completely different than your Wi-Fi. And so that was what I chose. So I had to buy a second bridge. So if you go into my Philips Hue app, I have 2 bridges. One is for my house in Murfreesboro.
Oh, yeah.
And one is for my house in Nashville. So I can literally change lights on people in a different house still, which is kind of cool.
It is.
I don't do it, but it would be fun to play around and do.
In the 80s, that would be magic.
That would be magic in the 80s, and people would probably think they were needing to do an exorcism in their house. Now they just think, who's screwing around with me? Right?
Little Stranger Things action.
That's right. And so I did that. Now the second one then goes to cameras and door locks. I think those two can be together in many cases. I started off with Ring, and I was just like, I was feeling a little bit of the creep thing with the Ring. I actually gave it to a friend.
What are you talking about? The creep thing?
It's my camera doorbell was always taking images, and I just didn't know if people had access to that.
Of people walking by or of the family?
Nope, just of people walking by.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's it. That's all it was. Or, anything that, and by the way, I had really good experience. It was good at notifications.
Yeah.
And all of that. I switched over to Eufy. Remember, I've talked about Eufy before. That was on our Christmas episode. And literally days, we're really good about talking about something and then something major happening later, right?
Just it was like that GPT. Same week.
Yeah. And so what happened is Eufy had...
you bought Eufy because it stored stuff locally, though,
because it stores stuff locally. And there's a few of them out there that do this. So if you think about cameras, where do cameras store your data is really important. And if it doesn't have a micro SD or something local, then it's storing it in the cloud or nowhere. And that doesn't help you. Why are you even taking it if it's not being stored somewhere as opposed to just the live feed? So it stores it up to 30 days directly on the devices. I really liked it, and I switched over to Eufy at my house, as well as at the time I had a small little cabin, and we were Airbnb-ing it, and so that made it real easy. We had a Wi-Fi connection, and I could change the door lock, and I could see when people showed up instantly, and I also had cameras inside just for my cabin.
So you had cameras inside the Airbnb?
I did.
I've stayed at places like that before, and
now,
I disagree though.
I agree. I disagree with it as well. So I only used the cameras when we did not have guests.
Oh, okay.
So just so that I knew if somebody was in my house, but I always unplugged them, put them in a drawer when I had a renter.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, I'm with you. I believe in the creep factor as well, but I kept my cameras on outside 100% of the time.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
that's for safety and insurance purposes, I'm sure.
Hey, it's just as much about a squirrel or something on my porch as much as a person, right? And so with Eufy, I had cameras that were in different corners. I had a lock that was Wi-Fi enabled, that it could be changed, and it had a fingerprint. So I really like the Eufy stuff.
Yeah.
And I would have, without that article coming out, I probably would be with Eufy right now.
What happened in that article?
Well, what happened is they, of course, say that they do not collect anything directly from the devices.
They don't upload the.
They don't upload,
and
and something came out that they do. They're saying it was still anonymized, and I don't know if the real truth ever really came out. But with that, I still have Eufy at home just as my door, but that's no cameras. It's just my fingerprint and a code.
And you've got a vacuum too.
I do have the Eufy vacuum, and it's not connected to anything. It's not Wi-Fi enabled.
Yeah, I had a Eufy vacuum for a while too.
Yeah,
you got to put tape down to keep them in a certain area, and I didn't like that. Or the model I had.
Oh yeah, I don't have to do that. It stays pretty good, except we notice it goes like to one area and doesn't seem to do the rest of the house yet. But it's learning, and we haven't had it with the dogs yet. But anyways, so I knew that I was okay with it being uploaded if it was outside stuff. How do you feel? So you've really pretty much said, so cameras, do you have cameras outside right now?
No.
Okay.
But I think I might do a front door and a back door one.
Okay.
And that's mostly just for security perspective, or for security's sake. Man, my tongue got twisted.
No problem.
But I don't really know. Like I'm going to make the choice that you made, and that I'm going to get something that just records locally, in the back at least. And then the front, I may do something that's in the cloud, because I like the ability to potentially interact with people, let somebody in, because my kids are getting to the age where friends could come over and I could unlock the door for them and not have to worry about having my key all the time and all that kind of stuff. And so, but I think that's it. And then I know people who have indoor cameras, like they have a camera in their living room and stuff like that. And, you always see video from indoor cameras on the internet.
Sure.
Because, they capture everything. And so the side note, the thing I wonder when I see those videos is, how did that get on the internet? But that's to not go down that path right now. To me, it's weird. The concept of constantly recording your family in every situation is weird to me.
Yeah, I'm with you. And so for me, it's got to be a specific use case. So actually, I am recording. So if you think about the ones that are out there that have SD cards to go with them, one is still Eufy, and they're probably going to be a lot more careful over time. The other one is Wyze, WYZE.
Okay.
If you get you can get a micro SD to put in those, and those will store locally as well. And I think those store directly on the device, where Eufy, it's actually being stored in the hub. That's part of it.
We're going to have a lot of links to description.
I know. And well, we've already got them in our notes already. And the other one that I really thought would be the one I would choose. And by the way, Ring is another one that's really, really good out there. A lot of cameras, doorbells, everybody loves them. But again, everything's going to be uploaded to a cloud for that. Yeah. So,
same with Ring.
And and Nest has their own as well. Nest is what So Google and Nest is the same thing. Ring is the one from Amazon. Apple does not have its own brand of cameras or anything like that. You can use ones that go with it. The ones that I saw that were most intriguing were Arlo, ARLO, and that's what I chose. And so Arlo is the reason I chose it. It does upload to a cloud. Again, I was only choosing, I chose 2 cameras, one for my backyard, just because,
Well, you have some common space behind your house.
I do, yeah. And I live kind of close to a church, and the church owns the stuff in the back, and I do have a gate that comes from my back. So I'm like, what the heck, I'll put that back there.
You got to keep an eye on those church folks.
That's right. I'm really not worried about them, but since I did put a gate in the back, I just figured I should have one there. And again, right now I'm not there all the time, The second one though, this one I really like, and I did not put a floodlight in for my drive, and I should have. And as I was talking to my builder, they're like, well, you can. And I'm like, you know what? Let me look at smart ones out there. And so I saw the Arlo one. So Arlo has a floodlight that you can have, and the minute it sees motion, the floodlight goes on and it starts recording. And it's really good. It's 4K. It's really, really good. And you can set the parameters on what it sees, and it sees, let's say, 270 degrees.
Around the corner.
Yeah, it does really well. And so I've got the tall skinny. I really don't have a front to my house. I have a drive on the side.
Yeah.
So when you come up my drive, which you've been there, the light will go on and it captures my front door as well, because my door is on the side. So I didn't need to get a doorbell camera or anything there. I just needed this one floodlight, and I want light when I come into my drive. It gives me that light. It also turns on. It gives me the ability to hear if I want it. I can set it to sensitivities. The app is really good, really, really good app. And the other thing I can do is I can talk through it. And I have had a use case where I've already had to talk through it. So
Did you tell somebody they're at the wrong house?
what happened is my daughter, of course, again, like I said, she lives there with me right now in the house. And she texts me, and she's got the Arlo app on her phone. And she's like, Dad, somebody's at our house and they're just walking around it. And, being a new house, you think, okay, a builder, things like that. But I didn't recognize the person at all. And they're just walking around my fence in the back. And they keep going around. And they've walked around my house now like 3 or 4 times. It's just this older guy in a pickup truck. And
like he pulled into your driveway pickup
pulled
truck?
right up into, right there. And I'm like, we're not supposed to have any work done. I don't know what's really going on. So I just said, hey, excuse me. And he's looking around.
You're the voice from nowhere?
That's right. And he literally was confused. And all of a sudden he could see where it was coming from. So this is my test. I never tested it with anybody else. And I'm like, I wonder if he can hear me. I wonder what the latency is, all of that. A little bit of a latency, so I would say something and I could tell it took an extra, let's say half second or second for him to hear it. And as he did, he started talking back. And I had a conversation with him. He was the guy that built my fence originally, which was, it was part of the build of the home. He was getting ready to build one for a neighbor, and he wanted it to look the same. And so he was walking around it just to make sure that he got the right materials to build the same fence as my new neighbor. And that was it. And we had the conversation, and that was it. It was kind of funny. So I that makes more sense probably at a front door for people, because, you get a package, you get somebody to come into your front door, the ability to talk. And so there's a lot of doorbells with cameras that also have the ability to have a conversation. And so those are things that are going to need a Wi-Fi connection. They're going to need cloud storage. So you need that capability if you want to be able to talk to people. So it does. If you only store locally, you're storing locally. Now remember, if you store locally, that means you can't watch it either.
Yeah, you got to go review it.
Yeah, and that's fine. So you can now with Eufy, you could also still get cloud, so you can have it local, and then also you could still pay for the ability to have it cloud. But I think that's the real important part: is when you get an alert, don't you want to see it at that moment? So it has to be stored somewhere and viewed.
That's the most intriguing argument to me right now, because I'm still on the fence. Like, I've decided that we're going to get a smart lock. And then it's like the front door cameras, I can't decide. And so, but from a security perspective, I do like the thought of, like, with my kids getting older, just having a record of like who's coming to the door and all that kind of stuff. And my neighborhood's, it's a really good neighborhood. So I don't fear like passersby or anything like that. It's not it's not walked a lot. And so I don't feel it, but I would hate to not have it and need it in that kind of reviewing what's going on way, making sure that if my kids are home alone, that like there's really nothing going on. Like, it feels like a peace of mind that I could buy into.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
It makes it where having the parties when your parents leave goes away, doesn't it? I'm
I
trying
was
to
thinking about that. You were talking about staying with your daughter and having the front and back thing. I was like, she can't sneak anybody over.
A boy came over.
Which you knew about it.
Yeah, I knew at that moment. And I was like, who's this boy coming over to my house? And she's like, oh, that's just whoever. And that's Jacob's friend, blah, blah, blah. Jacob's my oldest son. And I was like, oh, okay. And so I had to leave her alone. But you know what? And I want them to still have, they need to live their lives and not think I'm watching them the whole time.
Yeah.
You know?
In the home, that's what I'm saying. I think that
I can't do it in the house with
front and back
adult kids.
Front and back outside, it's fine. But in the home, it just like maybe it's something you just grow accustomed to, because I've known of situations where in-home cameras like helped people be absolved of crimes.
Yeah.
And so it definitely has uses from a liability sake. But I value my kids' autonomy. Yeah. And I feel like if they thought that there was, if they grew up under the eye of a camera, like what perspective does that give them kind of unintentionally?
Yeah, I think, and I think if you have like the second home, that kind of stuff, if you've got that kind of money, then boy, put in cameras, especially if you're the only one using it.
Yeah, I like the cabin example. That's a really good example to have one. And then in cohabitation situations where like you've got a room of a 4-room apartment or something like that, I could see running a camera while you're not there.
Yeah, I mean, if you're really worried about, like, it would save, hey, if you had a leak in your refrigerator and you were gone for a while. I know I had a friend where they had to gut his entire house because of a leak, and he was on vacation because of that. You might be able to catch it. I don't feel like anything with those. It's given me peace of mind when I had the other house. So there is a little bit to that. I think but I also think it's overkill sometimes. Like a lot of people are like, well, I need that because of just for that one use case. And it's like, that's a lot of privacy you're giving up for that 1 in a million opportunity. Like the burglary, nothing against that, but I want good locks. What I did do with Arlo, by the way, just to finish that, is I have a camera in the backyard. I have that Arlo floodlight. Now, if you get the floodlight, really think about connecting it to an outlet, because it will die in a week, and it's kind of a pain to keep going and charging a battery.
I was going to ask you that earlier, but I forgot.
So it is battery operated, so I didn't have to do that. But I did add the 25-foot extension because I have a spot, and it's right in the top left corner of my house. That way I could get the front door, and I've got an outlet right below that, so it was easy. And now I never have to charge it, and that's been great. But it also has home security. And so with home security, it's a little device that's in your house, and I then put the little magnets that go on your doors and your windows and your garage door. So I'm really excited about this too. They're just little devices, and so there's 2 of them. One that goes on the outside of your door and one on the actual door, and they're magnets. So when it opens, it knows you opened the door. And when they're not connected to each other or close to each other, it knows the door's open. And when they're closed, obviously that means they're close to each other. The one on the garage door, if your garage door is 45 degrees or more in an angle with that little device, it knows it's open.
Oh, yeah.
And that's really cool.
So you put it on like the bottom?
You put on the top part, because that's when it would be, it automatically goes to 45 and then it goes to 90 at that point. So it knows right away, because if it opens up like just 3 feet, then it goes at the bottom.
That way you know if it's cracked.
That's
stuff.
right.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, and so that to me is great peace of mind, because I don't have a camera showing my front of my, I don't have a camera on my garage door. So that's also nice. I've got it on my back sliding door. And I'm debating whether I should put it on a couple of windows, but I don't know about that yet. We'll see.
I think windows, I would want something that has like shatter detection and whatnot.
That's a good point. Yeah, that's probably more than even opening, right? Because how many times you open those. But anyways, that is all part of, so there's Arlo Secure, and that's something that I added to that. I will say this, my only complaint about Arlo is, and it's user error at this point. I'm not blaming Arlo. I need to play with it more, is I get like 60 notifications.
I was about to ask, how do you keep up with all those
There's
door?
a ton of them. Yeah, because I got different people working there. And so when we had somebody actually doing work there, it's capturing, and what I have it set to right now is capture 10 seconds at a time. Well, if somebody just keeps doing things in my front yard, it's every 10 seconds. And my daughter's like, can we please turn this off? And so I have to go in there and just disable it at that moment. And so I need to get it better where if it, there's got to be something, I hope, where if it triggers multiple times, it'll stop. But I love what's really cool is also on the app, and I know I'm going too much in the weeds here because I love this stuff. It'll also show you if it's an animal, if it's a person, if it's a vehicle, and it will say vehicle detected, animal detected. And I think that's kind of cool as well.
That is cool. I mean, because that's a default priority. Like, you'll get around to looking at the animal because sometimes I'm sure that's neat. But people in cars, you're just like, what's going on with this?
Yeah. So the other two major areas would be locks. My luck with locks at this point has not been good.
You were
the one I bought.
You were telling me about this earlier. So what did you get?
So I bought, it's called Level, level.co. And the reason I bought it is it's enabled with HomeKit. So HomeKit basically means if you look at your iPhone, you have something called HomeKit, but it's also part of your control center. So I could have the ability to open my door just straight from my phone, from the control center screen, or even from my watch pretty easily. So I was like, oh, that sounds pretty cool. And it's Bluetooth connected, and sometimes it just doesn't work.
That's a bummer.
So here's what I did. You can buy these little tags that are Bluetooth as well. And I just put that on my bag, and those have worked every time.
Okay.
And then you can also buy a keypad. And so I bought the keypad. And so, by the way, the whole reason I bought the level.co one is because it's just a lock, and it looks nice.
Okay.
My wife insisted on a lock that wasn't big and bulky like the other one that I had.
Yeah.
She wanted her front door to look pretty.
The one we got is a big and bulky one, but we're putting it on the side instead of the front.
Well, and this one, the keypad is separate, and we put it on a pillar. You can't even see the keypad.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, I thought so. I think that was a compromise. So by adding the keypad and these little tags, I haven't had a problem since, and my phone still works. And it has this thing, and this is where I was getting, I think, screwed up with it. It's geotagged or geofenced. So when you pull into your drive, it will unlock.
Yeah,
at
it
a
knows
certain
your home.
point. Yeah. But it can be a little bit finicky if you're not up to your door within a certain amount of time. So you feel like you're rushing to get up there, and then it doesn't work, and then it locks you out. And I got locked out of my house when I went on a run. And my phone, I'm sitting there with my phone and my watch, and I can't get in the house. I had to wait for my daughter to get home. I had no way of getting in, and she was only 5 minutes away.
Yeah.
And so, but anyways, all of that is the delight stuff that you add. And sometimes can be a pain.
Yeah. So my wife, she comes along unwillingly through the journey of home automation.
Yeah.
She's getting into some of it, but overall she makes fun of me because we tell our fans, we also have smart fans. And so we tell our fans, turn the den fan off or turn the fan off. But there's one app where the name doubled, and we call it it's the Den fan. So you have to say, hey, oh crap.
That's all right.
My bad, everybody. Hey, assistant, turn off the Den fan. And that every time I do that, she gets a kick out of it because she thinks it's so unnecessary. All of it's just unnecessary. And then if I ever have trouble with it and I'm having to troubleshoot something, she's just like right there, just being like, oh yeah, I bet you're glad you did this now.
Yeah. Well, you know how in the last episode we talked about how new technologies, we use the gimmicky stuff for delight and stuff like that. It's a little bit of that where
for sure.
I had one where I would have, I would say to my one that, I think it was good night. And it would dim the lights to like a blue hue or no, it was like a orange, something that was, good for your eyes.
Yeah.
And then it would tell us a joke. And my wife's like, this is the dumbest thing ever. I'm like, and after about a week, it was kind of dumb.
Yeah.
I will say this. I chose not to go down the route of smart thermostats.
Yeah. So we were going to get into this, but then we decided to wait. So what's your opposition to that? Because I have a thermostat and I like it. It was weird as far as like the suggested schedules went and stuff, but once we kind of planned it out, it seemed to work fine.
I'm not against it. But I And it really was helpful when I had the cabin, right? Because if somebody was in that place and they turned the heat to 80, I could turn it back to 68 when they left, things like that. I don't have anything against it. I just don't have a need to control it from a different place. And the Honeywell one that came with the house works great. And for me to spend $200 to $300 or $170 or whatever they are these days, I haven't even looked lately, on 3 different ones, because I have 3 floors, I just don't feel the need. If you got to buy one, you got to buy 3, right?
I don't know. Do you?
Well, why would I only want to control the middle floor?
Well, so you have 3 different control zones in your thing?
I do. I have 2 different devices, but we have different zones. And so,
Okay. So I don't know. Like we would have a need for 2 because we have 2 completely separate units.
Yeah.
And I like the idea of being able to control both. And we eventually, so we got that.
But you can with all of the thermostats out there. I just can't control it from a phone or anything else. But I got it on a schedule now. It's a little bit of a pain to set that schedule.
Yeah, but once it's in there, it's fine, right?
Yeah, and that I noticed I was never in my house changing the one that I had.
So the way we use it in our house, apart from setting schedules, is like whenever we go on a trip, if we forget to turn it down, it's, we've got the ability to change it. And then coming back, if we did remember, or if we had to change it, since we've got the actual
you
smart
turn
one,
it back to...
Yeah, we turn it back up like a half hour, and we save a lot.
I have to decide if spending the couple $100 is worth it for that. Those are the only 2 use cases I have too.
Well, I think it depends on how long you want to stay there. If you want to stay there more than 5 years, I would say it's probably worth it. Yeah,
and again, I haven't fully moved in yet, so it's the next thing. Now to just go a little bit more down the smart, but I'm going to say spend 2 seconds on this. Supposedly, my refrigerator, my stove, and my washer and dryer are smart enabled.
Yeah.
I haven't even looked at what that means yet.
That's where SmartThings comes in. So SmartThings is one of those hubs that does a really good job of connecting to all those peripheral pieces. Yeah. But you can connect SmartThings to HomeKit in certain ways too. So you should be able to bridge the gap, so to speak, or at least I hope you can. But like we said earlier, that's one of the things that Apple's known for is its inability to communicate with lots of things.
Yeah, and I have to make a decision there. I think long term, I don't think HomeKit by itself. And remember, there's hubs that can connect to HomeKit that give you more ability.
Yeah, that round it out. For sure.
Yeah, and if you want to really learn into the gadgets, there's 1,000 different podcasts and YouTube videos out there, and I've watched a lot of them. I think what we're trying to get through today is your data and where it lives, and that helps drive your choices. Yeah, and I think that's the real important part.
Well, on that note, while I'm thinking about it, is we forgot to bring it up at the time, but one of the problems with specifically with data security is the skills.
Yeah.
And so third parties can develop skills, and they're not all moderated or maintained. And so if there's there could be a lot of exploits in unmaintained skills, and that puts your devices at risk for data breach and stuff.
Yeah, and skills are really helpful. I know that, when we say a skill, think of it as it could be specific to the device, or it could be something that I create that connects my Philips Hue and my door lock together. Like if this, then that, which is IFTTT, I think. I could have it where every time my door lock opens, lights in the house come on, which actually is a really good idea, right?
Yeah.
That skill now is giving that data to somebody other than just Amazon. And that's what you're saying in that case. If it
Potentially,
was, yeah. If it was a third-party skill.
They collect, they have their own information that they need to run their skill. But, it just depends on, it creates the potential for a data breach. It doesn't mean that it will, because that, maybe that skill will never have access to anything, actually secure. But, what happens if Amazon, which is this has happened before, what happens if Amazon doesn't maintain a skill correctly?
Yeah,
and then people get through that. Then how much access do they have? And so I don't like Amazon was immediately off the table for me because of that type of stuff. Like they've been known to capture things without permission, and they typically they make me feel more like a commodity than any other company.
Yeah, no, I'm with you there. I think, and again, the idea of Apple, there's so many other things in home automation that I'm going to explore Maybe we talk about it here, maybe we don't, like NFT tags in the house, where you can have it where you walk in and if it gets close to your phone, the lights automatically come on. I mean, there's so many things. Even the geofencing, I get close to my house, and as I get close to my house, the lights, if I had a floodlight that wasn't motion detection, it would automatically come on. The lights would come on, and maybe some mood music would come on as well, right?
Yeah.
When I leave my house, it automatically shuts my garage door and makes sure the front door is locked. Those are things that I'm going to probably play a lot more with. And so I might need a better hub to be able to do that. And we'll see how that goes. And in every case, I'm making a decision of how much data do I want to give to somebody else for that convenience of these things communicating with each other.
Yeah. I mean, so IoT, which is what empowers all of those devices to work in that kind of way, which is the IoT stands for the Internet of Things. And it's essentially a radio that transmits data over the wireless network to like any type of application. So Samsung can tell you remotely like what the temperature oven is. I assume you can turn it on off. I'm about to find out because I just got a bunch of IoT connected devices and the kitchen's about to be done. So that'll be great.
Yeah.
But I intend to connect them and figure out what I can do with them. And then if it's cool, it's cool. And if it's not, or if it's overkill or whatnot, then
yeah. Well, you've inspired me to think about what can that hub truly be, and I'm probably going to go with the iPad in the beginning and make.
I like that idea.
Just to do it, I really want to. If I'm going to go, might as well go all the way in.
So the question becomes: are you going to do a hub that is centered around iOS shortcuts because there are lots of limitations to that, or is it going to be an IFTTT or SmartThings? That
to me is going to need a little bit more research, to be honest. I don't have an answer for that because I think I am probably going to use something that is more than just shortcuts. Yeah, I
like shortcuts. They work really well, but they're just so limited compared to like what an IFTTT can do.
Yeah, and I've used that when it was called If This Then That. Was literally the name of it.
Oh, I've had it for a long time.
Yeah, me too. And I didn't realize I even had some things in the background. I think I still have every time I know I still have this one going. Every time I record something in Strava, it automatically goes to a Google Sheet.
Oh,
the data.
Neat. I haven't used that in a long time.
Yeah, I think it's still running. I don't know why it would stop.
If I had my phone, I could probably look and see if it's got any active stuff because it downloads. Then every time I update my phone, I've never deleted the app because I still like going in there and looking at it every now and again. But
you don't need an app. It runs in the cloud by itself.
Oh, I probably do have stuff that's running then.
Yeah, I bet you do.
I bet most of them are broken right now though, because most of the things
the minute you change, if you change a password, it'll break.
Yeah,
things like that.
They're all definitely broken. Then.
Yeah, I mean, I used to have tons of different things and if this and that, but I know we're going down a rabbit hole there. Yeah. But to bring it back in terms of ecosystems, it's Google, it's Amazon, it's Apple. I feel like that's everything that we talk about these days. It's not just home automation. They all have their own devices. I think I got to a point where I was only using Amazon Alexa as a timer.
I play a lot of music through mine, but I've been there before.
Okay, but forget about the music for a second. But I'm talking about as an assistant.
Yeah.
I was only using it as a timer. And I'm like, as a timer, this is a lot of data I'm giving somebody to be a timer.
That's a good point.
Yeah. And so that was probably my biggest reason I switched from Amazon. And I knew that if it was about music, which I love music, and obviously I'm using it for my TV, I'd rather have better speakers. And I felt Apple HomePods and HomePod Minis were the way to go.
Yeah, that's fair.
So that was why I chose that. I never went down the Google route, even though I was using Nest before they were bought by Google, but never made that switch over to Google as my AI. And so now I've gone fully into that. In terms of what is it that can be part of your ecosystem, the generic stuff is going to be your lights, your cameras, your door locks, and your thermostat. And then the IoT devices that you're getting ready to play around with would be the next secondary thing.
Yeah, appliances, vacuums, fans.
Yeah. Do you have a good speaker system in your house?
I have two different setups. So the soundbar I use is Sonos, and it's compatible with Google. And so I was going to bring it up if we had time, but like it's just like a very expensive HomePod for me right now. But the soundbar is great, and I can give it commands and stuff like that. And but I can also stream my music to it at any point in time too, and then I can just tell it to play stuff, and it will. So, but it's compatible with Google and HomeKit. And I think Amazon too, because it's Sonos. They're the biggest. They're the biggest
Sonos is and very expensive. But very good.
But then I've got the analog thing where I've got a receiver and a record player and two wired speakers that aren't powered because I've got a receiver I think it's 200 watts or something like that.
Oh wow!
Yeah, it's not super high end or anything, but it's nice.
Yeah. Now all I have is Apple HomePods, and I have one little one I can take outside here or there. I got
a Bluetooth speaker.
Yeah,
too.
it's basically a Bluetooth speaker, and it's a really good one.
Mine's
really
a Boom
good.
3.
Boom 3? Okay. I'm trying to think what I don't know what my brand is. I wish I knew because I'd like to give them a shout out. I think it's a great one. It always connects. That's the only other thing. And so I'm interested, again, with 3 different levels of a home, what's my surround sound going to be? Because I do like the idea of putting music on and it kind of being throughout the house.
Well, you can do that. So you can do that with your stuff. You just keep on buying pods and compatible
I just got to get more
speakers.
pods. Yep.
And because like I said, so also I was talking about those two speaker setups, but every room has a home Google Home Mini. Is that what they call it? I don't know. It's just a mini speaker. And my kids listen to music on it all the time.
It's called the Google Mini. Nest Mini.
Okay.
It is called the Nest.
So, but I'll listen to music on it every now and again. But we use those things for intercoms.
Really?
Like I'll tell it to, like once you have them all connected, you can say play the music on all the speakers, and it'll just play it all. But when we're done with the renovation, I'm going to update a lot of the speakers. Like the kitchen is going to get a good speaker after this, and I think I'm actually going to get Google's coming up with a new tablet, and the tablet sticks onto the stand, and so it's a tablet you can pull off and do whatever with.
Yeah.
But then you can also have it sitting on the speaker, and that's going to be my Chat GPT getting kitchen done node.
Oh, so that's where you're going to do your groceries with Instacart, take a picture and know what you need to buy, as we talked about in the last episode. And
it's going to be a kitchen tool.
Wow. I might have to go the Apple route, and we'll have to fight over who gets better, but yours is going to be better.
Mine will be more functional, but yours will be more pretentious. I'm sorry, no, not pretentious. Yes, pretentious.
Pretentious. That's true.
It'll be more secure.
Yes, supposedly. And the Apple HomePod Minis are $99, and then it'll be $299 if you want to get the new HomePod these days. So I've got to figure out. I really want a HomePod for my upstairs where the fancy TV is. I didn't even get into what I'd love to also get into. Like there's this company Nanoleaf that does lights. They do the cool lights on stuff, and also that can go behind a TV.
Oh yeah.
And then the colors change based on what's on the TV. That I really want.
It looks cool, but I've just not been able to buy in it. Like back when it came out, they were like, "No, see, it spreads out your experience into your periphery by matching the colors on the screen." And I tried it, and I just couldn't tell a difference other than it washed out the color on the actual screen, because that was before OLEDs.
Gotcha.
And don't get me started on TVs. But speaking of TVs, my TV is also a smart device.
Oh, yeah, all of them are these days, aren't they? And if it's anyone that's been in the last 5 years, probably it's a pretty smart device. Usually Wi-Fi enabled, and can do a lot of things as well. Yeah, I think there's basically what we're saying is everything that has a plug or electricity is going to be smart. And as we are talking even about all this stuff with AI, how much smarter is all of these devices going to be in the future? Is really going to be interesting. And we're just talking about the infancy of another aspect of data and technology. I think this is at least a good first attempt at talking about what people need to worry about. If you're always going to have this push and pull on security and data, and ease of use sometimes means you're giving up some security. And if you're not caring as much about the security component, because what you're giving them, you don't care about. Like again, outside stuff, everybody can see outside anyways, right? then you can make that decision. So I'm not saying one is better than another. One is different.
Yeah.
And I think your choice makes complete sense. My choice is based more on an ecosystem, I think.
Yeah.
And I just wanted to try something different.
Yeah. I'm with you there.
Yeah.
The one thing I would stress is that like as we walk through this home automation like process, and and things are about to get a lot wonkier with it, like we could totally change our minds too.
Yeah.
Like one company could show that they don't care about anything, and another could show or that they've changed in a way that changes our immediate allegiances based on our privacy needs.
That's right. In one article is all it takes for us to literally change what type of doorbell we use.
So on that note, what do you think the article is going to be that comes out in a couple of days that makes us have to redo this too?
I don't know. Arlo is going to have a major breach of some sort.
No, that you're 100% right.
It's got to be Arlo.
It's going to be Arlo.
Yeah, please, Arlo. No, don't do anything bad. I'm really enjoying it. By the way, you have beautiful products. One thing I like about their little camera in the back is it's magnetized to the actual stand, so you can just pop it out, and it works. It works really nice. It's pretty the way you set it up. It doesn't have to be screwed in every time you take it off to charge the battery. This was a lot of fun. It's obviously we all have our little things that we get to play around with, and as we continue to use data and tech to delight us, home automation is one of those. And so this was a lot of fun to have this conversation.
Yeah, I look forward to catching everybody up to on our journey to update our systems.
You with the Reno, me with a new place, and how all of that works. One in the Google system, one in the Apple. I know everybody will hear more about that. So final words?
I look forward to getting into more of this in the future for sure.
All right. I think we've done a good job of talking a little bit of data in the home automation space. And so another one of our Data for All podcasts in the books. I'm Charlie Apigian.
And I'm Charlie Yielding.
And until next time.